GTA 3, while being an unpolished shift from the 2D world to the 3D, was influential in gaming history, showing what can be possible when creating a responsive open-world game. Knowing Rockstar's game design history, and being skeptical of GTA 3's non-linear sandbox status, we examined the game to show that, hold up, how did we get to the end?
Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
For context, let's backtrack to the beginning. GTA 3, a genuine non-linear sandbox? GTA 3 was a monumental development in gaming history. The first game of Rockstar's 3D universe, the best-selling game of 2001, its release was as controversial as you'd expect from a game about committing crimes with no consequences, just as America was mourning the tragic events of 9/11. But that didn't stop Rockstar's quest into the unknown, from topping game sale charts and becoming an industry-defining game. The move away from GTA 1 and 2's top-down linear gameplay to a 3D non-linear open world was a huge leap, not only for Rockstar and the future of the developer, but for gaming in general. However, being the more forgettable of the GTA games compared to its successors, in part due to its glaring flaws, flipped cars are destroyed, falling in water kills you, cars take very little damage, to name a few, and usually having a general consensus on the matter, its status as a non-linear sandbox is rarely questioned. Well, let us revisit GTA 3 to see if it holds up to its appraisal and whether it deserves to be called non-linear sandbox. Questioning GTA 3's non-linear sandbox status can be broken down into two parts. Firstly, the non-linear aspect, and secondly, the sandbox aspect.
Sometimes my genius it's almost frightening.
So, let's start with the non-linear aspect. Non-linearity in storytelling is pretty self-explanatory. The story doesn't follow a linear chain of events which takes place chronologically. In games, this concept can be further broken down into non-linear narrative or non-linear gameplay. This refers to giving the player the freedom to choose which part of the story they want to complete and when or how they want to approach a level. Evaluating the non-linear portion of a game is far more straightforward than other aspects. All that needs to be done is to look at GTA 3's story and gameplay and compare it to the definition of non-linearity. And by definition, GTA 3's narrative holds up to this definition. The missions in GTA 3, with the exception of a few, such as Give Me Liberty, the first mission of the game which has to be done first, are approachable at the discretion of the player. Whole chunks of the story can be missed out if the player chooses to do so. And even the mandatory missions can be approached in the order the player chooses. For example, while roaming the open world of Portland, you can choose to start Luigi missions or Joey missions, in whichever order you want. This might not seem like a big deal now, with the plethora of non-linear games released, but back in 2001, being able to choose which missions you wanted to do, when you wanted to do them, was an aspect of control that only the developer possessed. However, it should be noted that the order in which you choose to do the missions has no implication on the wider story. Each individual mission set plays out in the same way, so while there's narrative non-linearity in the sense you can choose whether you want to do a mission for Kenji or Rei first, doing Kenji's or Rei's missions first won't influence the other. In addition, while missions can be accessed in a unique sequence, missions themselves must be played to completion before the next mission can be started. A higher degree of non-linearity is evident in games such as Horizon Zero Dawn, where missions can be activated and their objectives can be completed before or after objectives from other missions. This can be seen in the fact that for a significant portion of the game, there are two main quests running side by side, and the objectives within them can be completed at the player's discretion. An advancement in non-linear storytelling that couldn't be implemented in GTA 3. The second aspect to this is the sandbox environment, which can also be broken down into two parts. One being the open world outside of missions, and the second being the world inside missions. Analyzing both is key to gaining a full picture of 2001 Rockstar's game design and the gameplay choices. But for now, let's focus on the open world outside missions. In this subcategory of gameplay, we can clearly see that GTA 3 is a genuine sandbox. There are very little to no restrictions placed upon the player as to what they're allowed to do, how they interact with the world around them, and how they can change the world around them using the features of the game's mechanics. Restrictions do exist, for example certain areas of the map being inaccessible before specific key missions, but that is a feature of the game that adds to the value of GTA 3. The move from Portland to Staunton Island highlights the fact that we are making progress not only in the story, but in the in-game world, as we get access to more weapons, vehicles, and missions. A sandbox doesn't have to give you the freedom to completely break the game, but freedom enough that your actions have a substantial effect on the world around you. And GTA 3's world outside of missions is just that. The way you can create chaos in a seemingly ordered world as a direct result of your actions highlights the player's freedom to affect the world around them for better or worse. Creating this chaos is not only possible, but encouraged in a game about stealing and destroying vehicles and gunning down anything in sight. We examined the game to show that GTA 3 is a genuine non-linear sandbox. Looking at the individual criteria, we can see that GTA 3 checks each one: non-linear narrative, being able to complete the story in any order of your choosing, and a sandbox open world. The ability to affect the world around you, both aspects coming together to create a great, innovative gaming experience, and a beacon for future non-linear sandboxes. And there you have it, conclusive proof that having looked at each aspect, non-linearity and sandbox gameplay individually, now we need to take a look at specific mission designs and whether the label non-linear sandbox applies to the missions in GTA 3. The game has shown to be non-linear in an overarching sense of the mission selection, but examining the non-linearity in missions is very crucial. The same goes for sandbox gameplay design. GTA 3 shows its sandbox nature in the open world outside the missions, but as we mentioned earlier, the in-mission world needs to be examined as well. And so, we come to our final piece of analysis to see whether GTA 3's missions hold up to the non-linear sandbox classification. Non-linearity and creative freedom in missions is not an easy thing to achieve. To analyze whether GTA 3 had genuine non-linearity and creative freedom in its missions, we need to set out certain criteria for examination. These criteria consist of how many prompts or instructions were given during a mission, how many of these we can circumvent or proceed to do in an order different to the way the game wants you to do it, simply how many permutations can be achieved when trying to diverge from the main chronological mission path, if there's any at all, and what the objective of the mission is, and how many potential ways the missions can be completed. Why do we have these criteria in the first place? Well, in general, the less instructions a player is given on how a mission needs to be completed, and the less constraints these instructions impose on the player's actions, would somewhat translate to a non-linear sandbox. Approaching missions how we want and completing aspects of the missions in the order we want to is paramount when talking about non-linear sandbox games. I'm sure most people are familiar with the mission Farewell Chunky Lee Chong and its creative freedom. It's talked about a lot when showing that GTA 3 was a genuine non-linear sandbox. If you're not familiar, then the mission is supposed to go like this. You are tasked to kill Lee Chong, who is pushing Spank around Chinatown. He runs a noodle shop there. When you approach the side street with the noodle shop, you fight the triads with the pistol you pick up from behind ammunition. In that time, Lee Chong escapes to his car and you have to chase him down until you kill him. But the standard method of completing the mission is also the most frustrating method. Alternatively, you can mow down the triad members and kill him straight away if you pick up the AK, which is located behind Tony Cipriani's restaurant. Or if you feel extra gangster, someone a long time ago found out that if you were to go to where his car is parked, you can take the car to 8 Ball's bomb shop, install a bomb in the car, park the car back in the same spot, and then enter the alley. He gets in the car and the car blows up, completing the mission. This mission has become a staple to show GTA 3 as a non-linear sandbox, acting as an example of circumventing the chronological objective. And it's in part to do with how the game was coded, and the objective of the mission simply being, kill Chunky Lee Chong, and the rest was up to you. But this mission is but one of the 77 missions in the game, and paints a very skewed image of GTA 3 if taken in isolation, and certainly so if this is the mission by which we assign GTA 3 a non-linear sandbox status. Contrast this with the antecedent mission given by Joey, Mike Lip's Last Lunch. In this mission, we are tasked with driving to Marco's Bistro, taking Mike Forelli's car, driving it to 8 Ball's bomb shop, then driving the car back to Marco's Bistro and parking it in the exact spot that you got it from, activating the bomb and then leaving the area. If the car isn't parked in the exact spot or it's not oriented correctly, the cutscene doesn't play. If done right, Mike Forelli walks down the stairs to sit in the car and then... Just these two missions paint a very contrasting image of what GTA 3 is like. One is a guiding non-linear sandbox mission with multiple ways to get the mission past screen. The other is a more restricted, controlled mission with certain checkbox tasks, and doing anything different gets you nowhere. And while it can be argued that Mike Lip's Last Lunch is a way to introduce the 8 Ball bomb shop, there are many ways to introduce a gameplay mechanic without such a scripted mission. If we look at the other missions, there's sometimes hints of creative freedom even in missions which seem like having strict conditions, like the paparazzi purge. In this mission, you're supposed to get to the boat, tell the paparazzi while using the guns on the boat to sink the boat. However, you get access to an M16 near Donald Love's building. You can get close to the paparazzi boat and shoot it down using the M16. It does enough damage to destroy the boat and complete the mission. While some missions in GTA 3 mistakenly permit alternative methods, the majority of missions don't have such means to express your freedom and creativity. Missions like Deal Steal follow a scripted blueprint which feature in later GTA games. We are told to steal a specific type of vehicle, pick up the contact, drive the contact to the meeting location at the hospital, and then proceed to kill the Colombians, destroy the vehicles and recover the briefcase, then take the briefcase back to the casino. The only part of this mission that you could skip was already driving a Yardie so you wouldn't have to steal one, but honestly, who would be driving that car anyway when you have access to the Yakuza Stinger already? Or missions like Grand Theft Aero, where you have to drive to the airport, kill the Colombians in the hangar, check the plane for the package, find out that the package is not there, run over to the van to see that it came from a construction site, then drive to the construction site, kill the Colombians at the construction site, watch a cutscene involving some BDSM play, and finally take the package to Donald Love. Again, these types of missions are a stark contrast to the Farewell Chunky Lee Chong mission and the picture that it paints. And I wouldn't classify choosing which gun to use to complete the mission as an expression of non-linear sandbox freedom. Sometimes you don't even get to do that, and I'm looking at you, Uzi Rider. Upon further analysis, there's a disparity in GTA 3's open world and in-mission world. The open world features non-linear narration and sandbox freedom, but the in-mission world doesn't always reflect the open world game design. And this problem has been expressed by others in critiques of Rockstar's game design philosophy. However, taking a look at GTA 3 and examining Rockstar's preceding and succeeding games, it becomes evident that there might not have been a choice between Road A and B. GTA 1 and 2 were linear storylines and missions. GTA Vice City and San Andreas started moving away from the alternative mission completion systems, and GTA 4 and 5 became cinematic scripts with any divergence from the mission path resulting in mission failed. Looking at this progression of GTA games, there doesn't appear to be a bifurcation, but scripted missions polluted with aspects of non-linearity, which have been weeded out as Rockstar became better at developing 3D open world games. The conversation at Rockstar wasn't should we go down road A or B, but how can we fix the bugs in GTA 3 so that missions play out the way we want them to. What further highlights this point is how Rockstar had technical issues when developing GTA 3, but as Rockstar has become more proficient at developing 3D open worlds, they have started to address the minor issues that they couldn't in their first 3D open world, GTA 3. GTA 3 showed aspects of being a genuine non-linear sandbox, mainly due to the limits of the hardware at the time, but also because Rockstar wanted to create a world that was responsive to your actions. The infuriating gameplay flaws, which formed a checklist of fundamental mechanics that needed to and were fixed in later iterations of the Grand Theft Auto games, caused the player to try and find other ways to complete missions different from the standard method. A handful of missions could be completed using more inventive strategies. And so, while GTA 3's in-mission world might not be a true non-linear sandbox, the open world certainly is. Thank you for watching this video. Stay safe and remember to get good.